Okay, with it being 6 o'clock, I'm gonna start the public informational meeting. Just for your information, this is being recorded, only for the purpose of being able to be displayed later on online for people who are not able to make it, and they can review it at home. I'll start by introductions. I am Robert Garski, the Director of Public Works, and if we could go around the table, any elected official, if you'd like to introduce yourself, or city employee.
Robert Beesaw, First District. John Fache, First District.
Belinda Croy, Second District.
John Hass, Second District.
Bernie Ritchie, Third District. Mike Barrington, Fifth District.
Chad Hurt, I'm the AV guy, no, the city administrator. Thank you.
All right, with that being said, I'll start out by going over the plan view block by block, working from Persian Street down to Wolf River. I'll kind of go over what's existing and what is proposed changed. And then from that point, I will change it to a short PowerPoint that kind of goes over the reasoning behind the changes and what we do when we look at road design. And then after that, I'll kind of go into a question answer type scenario. So we'll start off here at Pershing and Oshkosh. As you can see, the roadway, that's another thing. When we're in the design stage, a lot of the things go back to back. So when I say 37 foot back to back, that's back a curb to back a curb on each side. In other views and other points, it goes by road surface, so face to face. So this would be 36 face to face or 37 back to back. So if I say 36, it's 36 or 37. And if it's 33, it's 33 back to back or 32 face to face. So in this section, the existing is 37 back to back. The only change going out here, you can see this light indicator right here. There's not much change on that radius whatsoever. This is not, you'll hear a lot of talk of changing radiuses to 15 foot. We would not change this to a 15-foot radius because that would put the stop traffic more out into the roadway for Pershing Street. So you want to keep a larger radius for that turn, and same on this side for cars to maneuver with that skewed angle. As we work down here at Robbins Street, we have some change to this radius. You can see the back of curb. I'll see if I can point to this thing a little better here. I'm too much caffeine, so I'll stick with this. You can see the back of curb is coming out a little bit. That's just to define, you don't want it too sweeping, and this gives us a little more room on that utility pole. This, oop, that's right. We gotta go to the next page. Go down here, go down here. Still remains, there we go. So everything in here remains the same all the way up into Jennings Street. So at Jennings, we already have 15-foot radiuses. So a lot of this will not change. At this point, when you cross Jennings Street, the road narrows to a 33 back to back or 32 face to face. This width carries all the way through Pine Street. So as we go down the street, you can see at Warren, we've adjusted these. This is where we start getting into shorter and tighter radiuses from this point, working your way to the north. This one here, they vary anywhere from 10 foot to 8 foot. I think the tightest radius is a little under 7 foot. So to stick consistent and with standard, we made all these 15 foot. So here you're at 32 for road width or 33 back to back and 15-foot radiuses. We keep going down at Millard. You can see how some of these radius start to tighten up. To make them 15 foot also helps with these pedestrian ramps, making them ADA compliant. Here we're doing a little bit on each corner as well. This intersection of law was fairly close as far as radius. There's slight changes, and it was just a hair bit where it came out and then started widening a little bit. Slide here where we're at extent. So you can see where it tucked in a little bit and then came back out. The object is to line everything up in a straight line. We're still at 33 foot. The intersection at Pine Street, with it being a larger roadway on the west side, there wasn't too much adjustment for radiuses. A little bit on the east side of the road, as you can tell, this one was fairly sharp. So from Pine Street down to Washington Street, it widens again to 37 foot back to back or 36 face to face. Come down, and right here you can see where this road actually gets even wider. You see a widening right here. This white line represents the old roadway. They did that to try to match up with this heavy offset to the west side intersection. So in order to line this up so you're not coming off of here and running into a square corner like you are here right now, they decided to, this is my guess, is to put this addition of this taper on here. So the idea is to get rid of the taper, remain this section at 37 foot to the Washington intersection. Now at this point is where the most change happens. Starting at the Washington Street intersection, working to the north. You can see where we have the pushback or the 15-foot radiuses versus the 8, and centering this roadway within the right-of-way, keeping it in line with everything that we've went over so far. Once we get down here, this existing roadway is 33 foot wide, 32 face to face. It is going to remain 33 back to back or 32 face to face. It is just being adjusted within the right of way so it lines up better with this intersection. You can see on this side there's a large distance between, it's roughly 6 feet from back of existing curb to back of proposed curb. From there, It narrows down, by the time you hit Buck Street, it is around 3 foot from back of curb existing to back of curb proposed. This is one of the tighter radiuses. We would stick with standard and go with 15 on both of these. At this point, the existing road from Buck Street to Beacon Street is still 32 foot wide. The proposed road is still 32 foot wide. We bring that all the way down to Beacon Street, where at this point, we are right around 2 foot from existing back of curb to proposed back of curb. From Beacon Street, or Beacon Avenue, sorry, I gotta take a sip. From Beacon Avenue to Cook Street, the existing road is 31 foot. 31 foot from back to back. The proposed road is 33 back to back. This is a 2 foot increase from Beacon to Cook. As you can see, we're right around that 2 foot. It varies in spots, like in some spots it goes up to 30 inches, down to 24 in areas. Making this 32 foot new proposed roadway in line with the right of way. We run into the same thing here at Cook to Spring. This is another section that right now is 30 foot, 31 back to back, and we're proposing 33 back to back. We also are changing, the proposed change is to line this up. Once we get down here at the Spring Street intersection, this turns to 41 feet. There's widenings on both sides. Where the existing roadway curb is right now, right here. This makes this another offset difficult intersection, because if you stop where you're supposed to stop, your visibility up this hill and to see oncoming traffic, you end up nudging out. And with traffic traveling north trying to turn on Spring, that creates conflict. So the proposal is to keep this at 32, carrying the curb line straight through to the intersection of Wolf River. Making this extension out, carrying this at 32 or 33 back to back until you hit the turn area for the intersection. Where this becomes, this is a misprint here. It's 2 11-foot lanes and then your 16.5-foot travel lane to the north. So this is closer to 40 foot back to back. Increasing this radius and bringing this out so you have better visibility towards the east when you're trying to manipulate a left-hand turn. So with all that being said, if we could switch to the PowerPoint one. So I was indicating before the what goes into a street reconstruction design. So first you analyze what street you're reconstructing. We have arterial streets, which would be the main streets that bring in traffic into town and out of town. has the least amount of stop and go or traffic control. So you're talking your Shawano Street, your Mill Street, Wolf River, Division, things of that nature. Then you get to the collector level. This is where Oshkosh falls. This is a street that collects side, low volume side street traffic, carries it to arterial streets such as Pershing or Wolf River. It has minimal stops, having 2 stops at Jennings and Washington. So once that's identified, you know what category you're in. You also check out your average daily traffic. With this, it was monitored late in the 90s. To get an average, you'd have to run it over at least a 3-day span, usually a Tuesday through Thursday. You can do it through various methods. The PD has helped us out with that before. But with where we had volumes on other streets and where the volume was taken on this one, we can say that the average is over 100, but under 500, and that'll come into play later on in the slide. So, but I wanted that on here so you can kind of know that some of the average daily traffic does affect how a street is designed. Another thing, like I talked about, was the alignment of the roadway within the right of way and eliminating offsets to get rid of hazards at intersections. Another thing you look at is, in order to do that, are you infringing on anyone's property? Is there any land acquisition that needs to take place? With this project, there is no land that needs to be acquired. Everything is taking place within the 60-foot right of way. Another thing you look at is drainage, like elevation issues. As you drive the street, do you notice water being held in traffic lanes? Does it look like the road surface is flat, and where you have to bring up this elevation or create more cross slope? Is this going to conflict with where you want the water to go and what it will do in these intersections? And that all goes into another whole stormwater package that I didn't want to bring onto this, but it does determine some of the cross sections that we'll run into later that I'll talk about. You also look at what you have for pedestrian accommodations, knowing that this street mostly has sidewalk on the west side only, or approaching sidewalk from the east going towards the west, where you have your cross on each side of the south side of the intersection. You look at how you're going to accommodate ADA requirements. Being a full reconstruction, we have to meet ADA compliancy with ramps, slopes, all that. The next thing you look at is intersection limits, where your project limits go outside of the actual project, like Oshkosh Street. If we're at Washington, how far are we going to go back? And that is all determined by, well, there's a lot of things that play in it. If we run into issues with sanitary main where we have to go a little bit further, but for the most part, you want to stick just past end of radius, unless you have to do a lot of slope change with pedestrian access. So when you're looking at that, you're looking at how it plays into your vision angles for this approaching traffic that's going to be turning and utilizing Oshkosh Street. Also, I've been here like 2.5 years, so I'm just getting familiar with everything. I spent a lot of time out there during the pre-planning stage, just kind of trying to pay attention to where these vehicles are parking, where vehicles seem to be parked all the time, and see how that affects how or what changes we want to make, if any. So after you do all that, you do a complete layout of the road as it sits now. It's all done by GPS. Digger hotline is called in so they can mark all the utilities, so you kind of know where that's gonna be. If you're going to change a lot of items, you get to find out what's gonna conflict with what and what's the best route to go from there. So then you get to the review standards. So looking at the plans right away, we knew that the severe offset at Washington Street was gonna be an issue if you're concerned about safety and making these intersections not only safer for motorists, but also pedestrians with two crossings right there at Washington and the school just down the street. The intersection and the way it functions works a lot better when everything is aligned. Even if you're going from a wider street to a narrower, you're tapering at the same rate. So that was one thing we wanted to address. The other thing, like I was talking about on Spring Street, was that offset that we had down there, and knew we had to address that. The radius at intersections, like I talked about, 8 foot or less in some areas. The reason I put 15 is about the standard. They actually technically say the standard is 14.5. But if you go anywhere, everybody uses the 15-foot rule. And then about the 2 block sections that is 30-foot wide face to face, making that into a 32-foot roadway. And the reasoning behind that is WISDOT puts out this literature, and for urban street roadway design criteria for posted speed limits, let's see if I'm a little steadier, 40 miles an hour or less, you go to the functional class. I know I said this is a collector street, but we, in a local environment, do not have a collector with an ADT at or around 4,500. Not to mention, it is not a 30 to 45 mile an hour speed limit. So we have to go to the local volume, not a consideration, with a speed limit at 25. Rule of thumb is if your speed limit is 25, you design to 30 miles an hour. Not that you want anybody going 30 miles an hour, but that is the way you design the street. So if you fall under this, it is a 2-lane, 2 travel lanes with widths of 10 to 12 foot, and parking and your roadway face of curb to face a curb, you're looking at 36 to 40 foot. Now the number in parentheses underneath there, 32, that is the minimum that is for a collector street or a local volume not in consideration street. So that is why we designed it at 32 feet. These were some of the concerns that were brought up at Common Council. I wanted to try to go over them the best I could before the question and answer. Speed, absolutely. It's always a concern. With widening that 2 block section, I don't feel with the roadway being at 32 foot or 36 foot for the entire length of that roadway, that it will make the traffic any faster or slower. If you go down to 30 foot, then you're going back to this no parking, where you're looking at no parking and you're at 30 foot. I wouldn't recommend that, because if you're in 2 sections of roadway or 2 block sections, you have 600 feet that looks wide open. The easiest way to slow traffic, and I did it in my own neighborhood when my kids were growing up, is park on the street. I know nobody likes to park on the street, but when my kids were out playing, a parked car slows traffic. They have to manipulate that, they have to go around, and they have to worry about oncoming traffic. It's not the answer, but this is a collector street and you're gonna run into volumes of traffic. So if we get away from taking those 2 blocks to 32, that's kind of the predicament we're looking at. There's also a question brought up about slope of driveway and the slope intercept. There are some areas in this widening that would come into play as far as creating more angle, but in the design of this area that especially by Buck Street where he already has a fairly inclined driveway, we're gonna adjust elevation in that area. And not only that, with your cross slope bringing it up to a 1%, you can alleviate the 15% like he talked about, and we would never ever put in anything that's greater than 10%. It's beyond standards. So we wouldn't design something where somebody's coming into their driveway at more of an angle than 10%. Taking away land. That was also a comment that I heard about, and I know it's a change, and there are some areas where there's gonna be 6 foot less of what was thought to be your front yard. It is still within this 60-foot right of way. And with this lined up within the right of way, you still have 13.5 foot on each side that from back of curb, 13.5 foot that is still city right of way. All of the aligning, all of that is to make the street safer, to line up everything a lot better, to keep the flow of traffic without a huge deviation like they're driving into a utility pole. Because this footprint will remain for a long time. If it's an asphalt street, it has, with proper maintenance, has at least a 30-year lifespan. And then you're talking more of a maintenance regimen versus a complete reconstruct at that time. So I guess at this point, I will open it up for questions.
And if you have questions, please come up to the mic so that we capture the question on the recording, so that we, for people online, when they watch this, they can hear what the question is.
My name's Andrew Krieger, we're at 620 West Beacon. So they just put a new power pole on my corner. Are they taking that down then to make it wider and then put it back up, or did they waste time doing that?
They should have put it, they have this set of plans.
They
And
put it right next to the other one, like they're touching.
this was at what corner?
West Beacon, but it would have been, what's 4 months ago? Yeah, like 4 months ago. So the old pole is still
Oh.
standing there. Both the poles are standing next to each other touching.
I know which one you're talking about, yes.
So if that's coming out, I would see that there's a waste of time and money. So that's just something I wanted to bring up.
Yeah, and I'm not sure why utilities switched that one out, but it was switched out a while ago, and they left that old one standing because of the
Spectrum.
the fiber that's running on the old existing pole. But yes, that would be moved
Yeah,
to the new location.
Okay, that's silly, but then the post in my yard that says 15 foot back of curb, those should all be down in the straight line, correct, when you look down them?
Are you talking the one in the far back corner? It should say 15-foot radius?
Yeah,
back
something
there?
like that with a
Okay.
pink flag on it.
Yep, and those vary because of where your side streets come in.
Okay,
So they come off of your side street at 15 foot. Cause they might even be over the right of way line on your side street. But they measure that in from there and then they bring it in from the other side and produce your 15-foot radius.
okay, what does that have to do with so there was a survey done and there's a post mark that I assume is the easement. It was painted pink. And then they came through and put these flags in that we're talking about and moved it over a foot further into my property and then painted it a different color and covered up the old. So I'm just curious what that means and,
Yeah, I would have to come out there. I'd be happy to come out and go over all that with you.
that'd be great, cause
Yeah,
that's confusing to me, cause mine, from what I've seen walking around, mine's the only one that has done that.
okay,
Okay, that's all I have for you.
okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Mike O'Connell, 809. I have a couple of questions about the sidewalks. If the sidewalk is going to be ripped up, we're on the west side and all the sidewalks are. And if they're going to be ripped up for sewerage or whatever, we have yellow lines marked there. Does that mean that there are utilities under the yellow lines or does that, okay.
Yes.
And the next one is, when you did I think it was Werner Allen, you planted trees at the, after everything was done, or is that gonna be part of the Oshkosh Street project?
Yes, we're looking at, because some of these large maples will have to come down because of the way they're ruining the curbs and the road surface and sidewalk. We're looking at a tree program, yes.
Okay, is there a choice? If we didn't want a tree, do we still have to get it? Could I donate it down along the boat landing?
If if you don't want a tree, you wouldn't be required to
Okay.
get a tree.
Okay, so sidewalk is going to be ripped up,
Yes,
okay,
and if you have sidewalk right now, you will have sidewalk. If you have no sidewalk, there will be no additional sidewalk.
okay, and the last question is, are we gonna have a hard time getting into our driveway for most of the summer?
I'm glad you asked that. The only time you should have real difficulty getting in and out of your driveway is when they're actually doing the utility work right in front of your property. The plan is to, as they go down the road and they're installing the sewer main, the water main, most of the stormwater will be in intersections, so that won't affect too much. But when they're doing that right in front of your property, there will be some limited access. But once they're passed, the plan is to allow to have everything ramped so you have access to your driveway.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Joe Thompson, 613 Oshkosh Street. I got the neighbor across me with the 15-degree driveway. How much are you gonna be bringing that road up?
So your concern is, are we bringing it up enough where you're gonna have pitch into your,
Yeah, cause I got one driveway that already pitches.
right? We're still going through the design phase.
Okay.
We'll make sure that, we take an account, and as soon as you said your address, we're working through that. And that's why I said we're gonna do a lot more play with cross slope than we will with elevation.
Okay.
Yeah, the last thing I wanna do is create a lot of cross slope towards your side where it's going through the curb and gutter into your driveway.
Sidewalks too, are they gonna widen all the sidewalks, or are they gonna keep them? Since they gotta be compliant, is it gonna be different now too?
To be a compliant sidewalk,
I don't know what they are right now.
right now, it varies out there
Yeah.
quite a bit. So we're actually walking the job tomorrow, going through the sidewalk aspect. We haven't gone through it all.
Okay.
But, The idea would be to at least have 4-foot panels, 4 foot wide.
What about safety measure? Are they gonna add any stop signs or anything like that? Because, I mean, everybody wants everybody to do 30 miles an hour there. I've lived there since '83. There ain't anybody that doesn't get close. to 50. And I think that's what a lot of these people are worried about too. I mean, some are losing their, but there's a lot of speeders going that road. I mean, I've seen people come by there 45, 50.
And hopefully, once it's new, it's more on a enforcement standpoint right off the bat, because it is gonna be fresh pavement and smooth and,
I get the
And-
enforcement thing, but I mean, they haven't enforced it in 20 years. That's a lot of concerns, especially my neighbors. We got 4 neighbors and they got like 14 kids. I mean, it's gonna take one of those kids that get killed and they're small. It's not gonna be good for the city. I mean, they wanna reconstruct the road. I think we really should think about that, because there's a lot of kids that come out from schools. Especially, towards summertime, there's football and everything. There's 100 kids that walk past my house.
There is current stop signs at Washington.
there's Washington 4-way and
Yeah.
there's Jennings.
Yeah, further up, but there's nothing
Yeah,
down.
there's nothing.
From Washington down to Wolf River, there's
We
no stop
consider
signs.
Washington the start of the quarter mile, because that's
Yeah.
where they leave from there, and it's 25-mile-an-hour precedent.
And that's something that can be
Yeah.
brought up at the Board of Public Works and be considered.
Okay, all right, appreciate it, thanks.
What-
Yes.
Do you think it would be best to, like, a placement of that, another four-way stop intersection, would that be at Beacon, or do you think it should go down to Cook?
I would think either more or put a cop there, put them there for a month and just start ticketing, because it's,
It's,
unfortunately, you're probably gonna have to put a citizen there, because I've had cops pull a stop sign without their license. So you're gonna have to do it, enforce it somehow. I'm not that person to enforce it. If I was, there wouldn't be a speeder. But there's a lot of kids that walk, like I said, I've lived there.
oh,
since
there,
83.
yeah,
There's-
no, I
if it
see them
was
every
like
day.
when we grew up, there'd be 500 kids walking past there. And there's a lot of people that, I mean, I got in an accident leaving my house. Somebody blew the stop sign going to the pool and they hit our trailer. I mean, there's been accidents right there. There's the buses.
So
I
maybe
know
the
the buses
Beacon,
complain about the width of the road, but they need to slow down too, because they fly through there.
thank you.
Hi, Jim Stern, 413 Oshkosh. I live on Oshkosh and Cook. That's a dead end, so we're gonna have a big problem when they start doing the sewers and everything with all the condos behind us.
Mm-hmm.
Just wondering, is that gonna be a big issue?
It'll definitely be staged to where they will have, I mean, they have to have access, so when they get to that point, if there would be a day where they're compromising that, I would guess it would be, I'm trying to think of where the water is laid out there. I believe it's on the west side. So if they're going through that intersection at a time where they would not have access down there, it would be up to the contractor and myself to make sure the contractor's on it to notify the residents down there that from this time to this time, but daily it will be open at end of day.
Okay, and the other thing I noticed, when Oshkosh hits Wolf River, you have a left and a right. We got 20 apartment units or more across the street. If there's no straight, you might wanna consider a straight lane there for one of those.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Tom Steinberg, 1212, Oshkosh, right on the corner of Warren. You said a lot of trees may be going, excuse me, a lot of trees may be going there. We got a couple maples in the front, they've been there since the house was built. And beautiful shade trees and everything else, but they are big like that. How do we know if they're gonna be going or not? Cause it's not going to be widened there at all, if they're just replacing the curb and gutter. at
Do
the
you
roadway.
know approximately how far off the back of curb they are?
Well, probably a foot, maybe it's just that full grown, I mean, they're mature now. They-
Yeah, then
You know,
if
that's
they're
the thing,
that
you
far
want
off
the
the back of
shade-
curb,
Shading all summer reduces your cooling costs big time and great in the yard, but, a nightmare in the fall, all the leaves, but
mhm.
that's Hate to see that go and start all over again and but not really necessary. I don't feel if you're not widening it or,
Yeah, the problem with them being that close to back a curb, when they come in to reconstruct that curb, they're gonna be taking out a good portion of the roots, which is gonna damage that tree anyways. I know it's unfortunate that, I mean, with no widening going there or anything, more than likely that tree will take on damage.
well, how would they take on damage to the roots if they're not, if they're just only going down that about a foot on the roadway to replace it?
When they go down to replace that curb and gutter, they're going down further than a foot.
You know what I mean? The root system goes out twice with the tree. It's,
And a lot of that root systems, they're gonna find that's underneath the roadway itself.
and my other question was, you said about traffic flow and we've heard with the kids and everything. And I heard you said so many a day, and did I hear you right? You said the traffic study was done in '90s?
95 was the last one that was done according to WISDOT records.
Really? So that's, Wyman Street has been done, and that used to be a lot of the main thoroughfare, and that's, traffic's been reduced. We've seen an increase in traffic on Oshkosh Street especially, for those hour and a half, 2 hour window in the morning and night for 9 months of the year. And as I said, kids walking and stuff, and I do park on the street a lot of times to slow cars down. Cause, especially you'll see high school kids headed to school going about 40 miles an hour, flying down that way. And I agree with him when he said that 4-way intersections, maybe there should be other stop signs. But, I just mean, I think that needs to be adjusted a little bit as far as traffic flow, cause where's that school traffic going? Cause when this starts and when it finishes, if it's leaks and it seeps over into the school year next year, there's gonna be some traffic issues.
Correct.
So, just something
And we're kind of looking at staging for this to try to get through a certain area before, hopefully weather dependent before school lets out. So if we're doing the first leg from like Wolf River and stop before Washington with, we know Washington's like a main thoroughfare going through to the schools over there. And then once school lets out, try to get past Washington, Pine, those main ones that kind of lead to Warner Allen and the schools, get through that area. Not guaranteed that we'll get through Jennings at that point before school starts up again.
So I know end of school to get down over the bridge is hard enough because traffic usually is pretty heavy on Wolfer Avenue and at the end of Oshkosh Street down there. So, and it just either way you're going. So it was just something if that was to be considered. Now, the last question, are these plans all final? What were the meetings in January or February going to be?
I plan on bringing this one next week. December 2nd is the Board of Public Works to get this finalized. That's why I'm having this today to take in the input, and then that way when I bring it to the board, then I'll get their input as well. Try to get this approved so we could do the final stages of the tie-ins for the sanitary on cross streets and stuff like that. And then I'm glad you asked that because I wanted to make a note before anybody left that look for another meeting sometime in February, more than likely March. You'll get another mailing and we'll try to blast it out as many locations we can. That'll be another meeting on the assessment process for the sanitary and water laterals. And it's all part of the process of the assessment schedule. So that meeting will have more information about not only the assessment, but we'll have a contractor by then, a better idea of what the staging will be through this whole thing, even down to the fine points of you know, what do I do with my garbage can and daily life stuff, so. Look for that mailing more than likely in March would be my guess, but we'll also put it out, you know, on the billboard, on social media, on our website to try to get that information to everybody that lives on Oshkosh.
Right.
Thank you.
Robert, I know you were gonna talk in detail about the assessment, but just to let everybody know right now, what items are being assessed and what items are not being assessed?
So, like I said in the letter, the only thing that's being assessed on this whole project is the sanitary lateral and the water lateral on your private property. There's no assessment for any of the curb and gutter, the sidewalk if you have that, your driveway apron if that is being replaced, to the sidewalk or to your tie-in point, or the road surface. So that's an overview of that,
And to that point, many other communities do assess for all those things.
all of it.
So London is way different. You're only getting assessment for what's on your private property, nothing for curb gutter, for sidewalk, roadway. I mean, other places, you can get an assessment of $20,000-$30,000 for all that. London does not have that. So I want to make that clear when you're talking to your neighbors, let them know they're not going to get assessments for that other stuff.
Hi, Anna Lab, 617 West Cook Street. I just wanted to say I appreciate my older people being here. I wanted to say I am still opposed to Oshkosh Street being widened, and I thank everyone who was here last week who wrote down their names and addresses. I can speak that they are also all opposed to it being widened. Just so I can understand, am I currently being charged property taxes for all of my yard, even if it's city property?
You are getting charged property taxes for your parcel, not for the city right away.
And I assume the city does not care that my property value will be going down. So I am now unhappy with my property by losing yard space and I choose to sell. I now have to sell for less. I assume the city does not care about that.
Do you know for sure that you would sell for less?
I would assume when I have large trees gone and less yard space and a good amount of privacy landscaping gone. Do I know that for sure? No. And just so I understand, you are suggesting I should park my car on my street to slow down traffic?
I said I have done that in the past to slow down traffic.
I don't think that's a great solution. I think adding a stop sign would be great. If you choose to widen it, I would prefer you don't widen it. And I think a lot of my neighbors and I would prefer just to have no parking on at least one side of the street. Widening it 2 feet and us all parking our cars is not going to create a wider lane to drive on. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. And to go back on that, if there was no parking and left that 30-foot wide, it would be like a wide open space for them to travel even faster. I mean, it's not like I want them to, but when they see something wide open and you have a 15-foot travel lane, they're gonna go fast.
No parking on one side.
It wouldn't be, because then we'd have to put up, like a lane deviation, actual striping to kind of indicate that. Because otherwise you're gonna have traffic on the one side, because the crown of the road's gonna remain the same. And you're gonna have people thinking that they can go around that with oncoming traffic, not wanting to move over because they think their center line is crown of road.
So then you'd have to
Stripe it in that section.
I have one more question. We have a retaining wall along our driveway. it goes all the way to the curb. Is that going to get replaced when they replace the apron? Because you're coming in 2 feet. And then it would be possible that I would need a retaining wall in front of my house like they did on Division. Because my yard already falls into the road. I'm out there edging 3, 4, 5 times a year because it all falls down into the road. So that's another thing I thought about.
Okay, as far as the retaining block coming to the roadway, technically anything that intrudes into the right of way, you shouldn't have a retaining wall that comes down into the right of way. I realize everywhere all this takes place and it would have to be treated like down the street. We also have, fence that comes right to the right of way. It'll be a discussion between those individual property owners and what will take place as far as where the cut-in line is gonna be, where the tie-in line will be, and what we'll do with what you have there existing. I don't foresee you needing a retaining wall along there as well, along the length of the roadway. But that can be addressed, when I meet with you out there as well.
Thank you.
You're the 620 address?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
One more thing, stop sign, they're talking Cook or Beacon. I just wonder on Cook if you'd want it with the hill there. You'd probably want it more on Beacon, would be my suggestion. I'd rather have it on Cook.
I'm Donna Washinsky from 621 West Beacon. I'm just wondering with that 15 foot radius, it's going to, I've got a flower bed on that corner there, and I'm assuming that's going to be taken out. I mean, is that my responsibility to?
Yes, if you would like to keep it, it would have to be moved prior to construction or in the construction time frame to have that moved.
And someone will tell me where it needs to be moved to then, and so
If you want it on your lot corner, we could definitely point that out and show you exactly where the right of way is.
okay, that'd be great, thanks.
You're welcome.
Carol Redding, 1202 Oshkosh Street. I have to ask you again because I'm listening to all of this, but okay, I live on that corner with Millard and Oshkosh Street.
Okay.
Now, there's a 15-foot marker that comes in and says from here to the edge of the curb. Okay, what I want to know is if that is going to come all the way, the curb is going to come all the way to that, or the radius of the Millard Street.
So are you talking where you see the stake?
Yes.
Yeah, so where your stake is in your yard, if you measure out 15 feet towards the road, towards your intersection,
Yeah.
it would be 15 feet and it radiuses off of that point. So it'd be 15 feet to Millard, 15 feet to Oshkosh. And that would give you your back of curb.
And okay, and so that's where
That's where,
coming
yep,
in,
that's
like
where
if
your
you're
curb,
turning, you're making a left turn off of Millard or whatever. That's it
yes.
For me.
If
So I
you
would
see
lose
where
this
it's,
huge maple tree. You've gone past my house. I have a huge one.
get a
How many feet is that off the curb right now?
It's probably been there since 1952. And I
Feels like,
didn't
feels
Give me a
like,
second, Robert.
feels
What
like
if
the
you-
maple tree is back far enough, but I
How
don't
far
remember.
back is that, do you know?
What's that?
How many feet behind the curb is that?
How far off? What?
How many feet off the curb is that tree right now, approximately?
Oh, well, because the marker that comes back, that, the stake that's in
Yep.
there says 15 feet, so that's saying they're right away. And so it's right in actually where the tree is, and if I stand there and if I look straight and just as I view it, I can, apple tree that's
Feels,
down,
it feels like our tree is further
burning
back.
bush and, I mean, I don't think that section
Okay.
is more or
I'll
less
grab
the
her.
radius I'm concerned about with that big tree,
We have a,
because there's flowers there too. Hmm? Am I doing what?
She's on the southeast
The
side.
bushes would be okay, I think so, but
southeast,
the big
Level
tree,
two.
That'd be the tree right there.
this tree here.
That's far enough back, isn't it?
Hey, Chad, can we go to Google Maps? They just ran through there like in October.
I think she's confused. I think that's just a stake to make them buy. It's not where they're gonna dig up.
Right.
Let's see here, let's go back up. You want Oshkosh and Millard?
Yep, right there.
yes.
Yeah, that's.
Let's see which way am I facing here.
One more. Gotta turn around.
I'm on the other side.
Other side, keep going around, there they are.
That tree right there.
No,
No, they.
Over across the street.
That
There
one
I
right
am.
there,
They-
that's
No.
far enough back.
that's far enough back.
That's far.
That's far enough back,
So what it's saying is, let's say your stake is right here.
yes,
It measures 15 feet this way would be the start, because it always ties into the intersection
all right.
radius. And it makes the 15-foot radius and ties in over here.
Okay, so then you're just kind of taking that corner and-
Right.
and
Yeah, it's,
rounding it up. All right,
it's just right here.
okay. I just
Yeah, it's
wanted
not
to,
Yeah, that tree will not,
I just wanted to make sure, because otherwise I'd be standing there with something.
As of
I would
now, that
probably-
tree looks
I would
like it's a
probably
private
join
tree,
Well,
not a city.
Right.
That's what it looks like right now.
Yeah.
You'll be good.
So okay, so then that's okay, and no sidewalk,
if you do not have sidewalk, you will not get sidewalk.
okay, sounds good, I just wanted to clear that up. Thank you, Bob. Yeah, I'm a visual.
Where are you at?
I'm on 621.
621 weekend. Come on.
Maybe the flowers.
So right here, you're
Yeah.
talking.
Yes, there's, that's lower, that's telling you.
Come on, move. There we go.
There's also telephone.
Yeah, this pedestal, this would have to be moved back, just for the fact that, let's say in 10 years, these bushes, don't get manicured or, don't stay low. Anything in this right of way that is bushy like that, and creates a vision issue for the vision triangle would have to be moved to property line.
One more question. Scott Street there where a lot of school traffic comes up there. Can they make that like a school zone? Because you got the catalyst up on Buck Street. You know, can that section be school zone to try to slow traffic down, at least during the school? I know it doesn't do all Oshkosh Street, but there's a lot of kids that walk up that road, walk right on Buck Street. Is that a possibility for something like that? If they're not gonna put
It's something that can be brought up, absolutely.
That is something else too. You said that the traffic study was done in
95.
1995, okay. Since then, they have, the type of traffic that's on there is something that I think everybody should know. There's school buses that go and everything, and they do vibrate a little bit. And then we have semis that, and they also they deliver to the schools. They go to like Bean City and Fremont and so forth, Cisco Foods or something. And so they're there's some heavy traffic that goes on that road too. And so I don't know how you determine, I know you drive over a little wire or something, but how do you determine that,
And that technically is not a heavy truck route. So the only trucks that are supposed to use that is trucks that are making deliveries and deliveries only.
Well, if that's the main route for the fire trucks and everything, also for, Tamaqua.
And it can be used for emergency response vehicles.
Okay, I understand that part, but there are semis that are on there, and they're big, and they.
And we can mark it appropriate at the beginning
I mean,
on
that
each
has
side.
something to do with the weight limits, doesn't it? I mean,
Yes, but this road's being reconstructed to 4.5 inches of asphalt.
all right,
Which can handle, because you have to take into account that garbage trucks are gonna be driving the street and other heavy vehicles like that, and we want it to last, so we do take that into account versus
but you will do another traffic count before this, no?
yeah, I can do a traffic study on the street as well,
Yeah, I think that.
but it'll fall well under the 4,500, and that's why we went to the second one on the local bracket when I was showing you that spreadsheet.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Hi, I'm Betsy Terensky. I live on the corner of Pine Street and Oshkosh. And I just want to add, are you aware that we have farm equipment that comes down Oshkosh Street? Quite a bit. So that's also something that you need to be aware of.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Mhm.
Does anybody else have any other questions or comments? I'd like to say thank you to everybody for showing up and providing your input. It's important on a stretch like this, and I'm glad we had this kind of turnout. I was worried that it would be smaller because on other projects I've had, there's hardly any turnout. And direct contact is the best means, and that's where you get the most value out of two-way conversation. So, and like I always say, I'm available when I'm at work. If you call, I'm not always at my desk. I'm usually out and about, but please leave a message and I'll return your call. I'll get back to you and try to address any of your issues the best I can.
I want to thank you for making yourself available, not only here, but you said if anyone has complaints or concerns, I should say, that you will meet them firsthand. That goes on.
Thank you.
I can say that, yes.
I've talked to him.
Could there be any kind of way that you could stop out if somebody wanted to, like I said, with my trees there, wondering if they will go or not, if you know ahead of time? And if they do go, I don't like it, but if they do go and replace them, we're not gonna get no little saplings or anything. If they're gonna replace them with something decent that actually is, because we're talking a tree that's 60 years old, at least, big. And that's, that takes a long time for something to get a decent tree that looks nice in a yard again. So,
Size hasn't been determined yet. But I would definitely meet you out there, whenever you want to look at them.
I'd be happy if you come in and take down one silver maple I got. Yeah, we could deal with it.
All right. Well, thank you all.
Yeah, thanks for your time.